The following program does not necessarily reflect the views of the staff or management of WFMD.
It's Success Happens on 930 WFMD, blending business and politics. Success Happens with your host, Jen Charlton.
Good morning and welcome to Success Happens. It is so great to be with you here today, and I want to set up what we're about to play for you, which is the show that I pre-taped on Thursday. Unbeknownst to me at the time, at the moment we were taping this show with an expert on voter fraud who is a member of the Judicial Watch legal team, at the same time there was a press conference about to take place with Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, and the rest is history. So what I wanted to do is let you know that this show was pre-taped prior to or during that press conference. So at the end of this show, and we've given you a few segments inserted here so you can kind of juxtapose, but at the end of this show, in the last segment, we're going to actually pull some key segments from that press conference. So stay tuned. You want to listen to this entire show, but know that this was under the premise, this show, that this was maybe a normal voting situation and a normal election. We know that it's not quite, but under normal circumstances, a lot of what Mr. Bob Popper is going to share with you, who's a senior attorney with Judicial Watch, is under the circumstances of a normal, election. So stay tuned. Thank you for listening. Please share this on the podcast. And also, we're not going to take call-ins today, but follow us on our Facebook page, Success Happens, and share it. We'll be sharing a lot of information. You're welcome to send me questions and comments there. Here we go. Good morning and welcome to Success Happens. This is Jen, and I have with me today an amazing guest who is an expert in election fraud. But I want to start by just mentioning something. This is a time like no other, with technology the way it is, with the issues around integrity within the media and so forth. We're going to try and tackle this. And I know a lot of us are on pins and needles, hoping and praying for a good outcome here from the standpoint of a conservative who wants, of course, President Trump to prevail. But that being said, there are a lot of issues in Michigash. So let's dig right in. I have with me today Bob Popper, who is a senior attorney with Judicial Watch. Tom Fitton, the president, is a real warrior for truth. So I am so honored to have you with us this morning. Good morning, Bob.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction. Thank you.
Yes, and I wonder if you could share with us a little bit about why do you do this work? How did you get into it?
Well, my own story is sort of reflective of the political divide in our country that's been growing for years. I started working in the Justice Department in the voting section. They handled federal voting law and lawsuits related to that, and I joined in 2005. And by the time I left in 2013, we had, among other things, started the new Black Panther lawsuit, civil lawsuit against a man who brought a billy club to a polling station in Philadelphia, which ought to be against the law. But by the time the higher-ups at the Department of Justice got through with the lawsuit, it had been pared back. We had managed to obtain it. They never showed up in court, by the way, to contest the lawsuit, so they defaulted. But notwithstanding that, all we got out of that was the man with the billy club was enjoined from showing up at polling stations in Philadelphia with a weapon for, I think it was 2 elections. And, nothing about Trenton. Okay?
Oh, my goodness.
Nothing about anywhere else. So, at that point I said, this is not where I want to be, and I went to Judicial Watch. I knew about the reputation, as you do. I'll tell you that at the Justice Department, during the Bush years, I managed to be part of 5 lawsuits involving claims that required states to clean up their voter rolls. During the Obama administration, 0 lawsuits were started under that federal statute. Since joining Judicial Watch, we have started 7 lawsuits under that federal statute, and a lot more investigations and just, a lot more enforcement is going on of that federal statute. At Judicial Watch, that is going on at the Justice Department.
Well, let me ask you about that, because the dirty voter rolls has been a big issue in this election. Are those lawsuits did they make a difference for this election, or is it still in process?
You know, in the short term, there's no relief that we're going to get in those lawsuits that affects this election. In the longer term, they matter tremendously. If you have people on a voter list who have probably moved somewhere else, that's the biggest category of sort of dead or inactive registrations. 10% of the American people move every year in any given place. And a tiny fraction, less than 1%, die in any given year. That means that any set of voter rolls instantly starts to become corrupt or, includes registrations belonging to people who are not eligible to vote because they're dead or living somewhere else.
Well, and we've covered some of that on this show, and I think that, they chalk it up for, oops, part of operational failure is you don't always have clean voter rolls. They don't take responsibility for the fact that they never did anything about it. But I want to move on to something, because I think this is really important, is to look at in these states where there are multiple states have had counting recounts and so forth.
Yes.
How do we say this has been an effective or constitutionally valid even election?
Well, look, I mean, you have to understand that there are fraud events and there are peculiarities and there are, just problems in any election. Elections are a much more sort of pedestrian act than most people realize. You go to the polls and you vote in a machine. The machine breaks. What do? You get a machine repairman to fix the machine, and no one can vote while that happens. I was telling someone the other day, I once saw, not in this election, in a prior election, a voting machine became too full of ballots to accept any more. So what did they do? They opened up the back of the machine and pushed the ballots out on the floor. Then it could accept more ballots. Now, there was no cheating going on there. It's just sort of desperate improvisation by the polling people there. Now, you get all these instances where there's a suggestion of an irregularity and, in many cases, fraud. We had a confirmed example of fraud in California the other day when two men were charged, or confirmed, at least suspected pending conviction. But two men ginned up 8,000 absentee ballots in the name of homeless persons, allegedly in the name of homeless persons. And they were going to vote those. And that's not a small amount. That's not like voting for your uncle.
Well, let me say this, Bob, that can swing an election because this election has been so close.
Yeah, there's a number. Wisconsin right now is margin of 20,000 votes. Nevada is a margin of 30,000. Arizona is a margin of, looks like 11,000. And Georgia is a margin of about 13,000. So, yes, absolutely, yes, that could swing an election.
So let me say this. On the Nevada, since you went there, if you take 15,000 that were switched to Biden, the delta now is down 13 from Biden, up 13 for Trump, correct? I mean, hypothetically speaking,
happens, yeah.
I don't know if that's the accurate situation there, but the point being, if you're pulling them out of Biden and they should have been at Trump, the effect is double the impact.
We don't know what all these situations are, but it matters also in Senate races and House races, and all cheating matters.
So, Bob, in this, what we're going to call an unveiling of the truth, they have discovered 353 counties with more than 1.8 million registered voters. That data cannot exceed the universe. So in this case, they had more registered voters than eligible voting age citizens. So that right there speaks to me that there's mishigosh, that's a technical word, for what's been going on. And I start to say, wait, I think we need a do-over. Because when you look at Dominion software, when you look at Hammer and Scorecard, and you look at the nonsense going on across the states that are primarily Democrat, where they've bought this crazy system promoted by likes of Clinton Foundation, it has that it just reeks of impropriety and irregularities and illegal activity. Don't we get a do-over?
It's really hard to get from a court. Yeah, you know, I'm laughing not at the suggestion because there's justice in it, but, you know, I don't think that that's going to happen. You know, I do think that...
well, let me say it this way, Bob, not to cut you off. Let's say it this way. It has never happened yet. There's always the possibility, is there not, with technology the way it is and the abuse of power and information the way they've done, that maybe this is the time when we finally say, you know what, we've now had enough.
Well, we would need more than we have, is my opinion. And, you know, I hate to say this. It kills me to say this, okay? But the Dominion software issue has been out there for 15 years. I mean, people have understood the Canadian roots and the Venezuelan roots of that company for a while. You know, we have a lot of suggestive evidence about particular irregularities, but I don't know that we have anything that adds up to the 2 or 3 state sweep that would put Trump in, you know, either in the White House or justify a claim for doing the entire election over again. You know, look, I don't like saying that, and we did that study with there are 353 counties with more voter registrations than citizens eligible to register in the first place. That shouldn't happen. And, you know, there's the data is census data, so it's a lagging indicator. At the same time, you know, when we drill down to the data, we find this everywhere. Actually, not everywhere. We find it in the states that let their registration rolls go to pot.
Well, but here's a question. How can, I'm going to kind of take a pivot. How can the state's attorney, and I think it's in Pennsylvania, a Democrat, prevent, or I'm going to say obstruct, the processing of the votes and exposing of the true numbers? How can that politician stand in the way of a proper electoral process?
Well, are you talking about keeping the Republican observers away from where the action was? Are you talking about that?
But they also refused. The person also, I think it's a female, refused to consider some of the or take action against some of the activity that was clearly. So that politician / attorney is imposing political bias on the processing of legal or illegal activity. Now, that you could say disenfranchises 50% at least of the Pennsylvanians who would otherwise, let's say, support Trump and want their voice to be heard. So that person is now disenfranchising a whole bunch of Pennsylvanians.
Well, you would need more votes illegally flipped, or, you know, people actually chased away from the polls. I mean, I will tell you that I was mentioning earlier what a sort of, you know, run-of-the-mill process it is to run an election, and how it's kind of homey and prone to failures. And, you know, the failures can be frightening if you really think that it affects an election. But in my time, certainly as an observer at the Justice Department, we ran into a situation where a person was wearing a sweater containing a picture and a plug for one of the candidates for Senate. You know, that's not supposed to happen. That's a blatant violation of the rules. There was another polling place where there was a floor-to-ceiling mural of the candidate at the time, President Obama. You can't have that. And there was actually, you know, a fight in court about covering that up, and the mural was covered up with just a few pieces of 8.5 by 11 paper, and it wasn't enough. And so they went back to court and got another order to cover it up for real. And, you know, it's just, these fights are constant.
And yet people are attacked, accosted, and violently abused if they wear a red MAGA hat.
Yeah, well, that's outrageous. That's outrageous. And also, you know, what the Lincoln Project is doing by trying to embarrass and hurt the economic prospects of law firms that help the Trump administration, that's outrageous. You know, I will tell you just from personal experience, if you have, and this wasn't my car, but if you have a car and you park it in downtown Washington and it has a Trump sticker, you know, it has a good chance of being keyed. And that will never happen if it has, you know, a Biden sticker, an Obama sticker. Yes, there's differential, violence.
All right. Well, let me say this. We're coming up on a break, and I want to leave people with something that I want to talk with you when we come back. to what degree is the media complicit in the illegal activity and the thrusting up of the negative rhetoric so that they're instilling this violence?
Well,
Look at media.
When we come back from the break, I'll say that they're being disgusting.
Yeah, they are being disgusting. I agree with you. But the media, to me, has broken the law because they have turned this election. I just saw something where it said, Biden buyer's remorse. You voted for the guy. Now you want to say, oops, I wish I hadn't? To me, this is all part of this do-over concept because the media threw this election.
The censorship that is going on in this country right now by big tech and by big media is almost as dangerous as the election fraud that we're revealing. Maybe just as dangerous. We're headed to a very bad place.
We're going to go on break. Thank you for our sponsors. Sweeties on the Creek. We're scooping now. It's going to be beautiful this weekend. Come out and get your favorite flavor. MJack Designs, KW Photography and Design, and Dianovich and Associates, a great security company. We'll be right back.
Are you interested in building your reputation through an outstanding customer experience? Hi, this is Melissa Lentz, owner of MJack Designs. We are experts in understanding, evaluating, and improving your customer's experience. Times have changed. Now more than ever, organizations need to know how they are perceived. Let MJack design a way for you to understand your customer experience. We put people first as a certified minority woman-owned business. Contact us at mjachdesigns.com.
Hi, this is Dave Dianovich, owner of Dianovich & Associates, a global security company. We offer top security professionals with vast law enforcement and military experience on rapid deployment to protect property and lives. With the current climate in our communities, we continue to deal with widespread protesting that can turn violent. Our team is available to protect you, your family, your business, regardless of the coverage you need. Call us at 866-476-1703, or you can visit us at DEANOVICH.com. Our mission is your survival.
When was the last time you had fresh homemade ice cream? Sweeties on the Creek is making ice cream. Stop in and taste our fresh-made selections, including dairy-free and all-natural flavors. Enjoy a fresh cup of coffee with a creamy shaker sundae. Taste a new fun flavor or an old yummy favorite. Sweeties, fresh made from cow to cone. Sweeties on the Creek, just up from Market Street. We're scooping now.
Got Alexa?
Just say open or start WFMD.
And you'll hear your local news and free talk radio station.
That is sweet.
Got Alexa? Just say
load or run WFMD.
Welcome back. Welcome back. This is Jen with Success Happens, and I am so pleased to have with me today Bob Popper, who is a senior attorney, expertise in voter fraud from Judicial Watch, an extraordinary organization. And one of the things I want to just put in with people is that your motto is because no one is above the law. I love that. And, you know, and yet we operate like these media people can throw an election. They can tell lies. They can impugn the integrity of somebody just because they don't like them and turn around and say, oops, I shouldn't have said that. The damage is done. So,
well, they're like 10,000 press secretaries for the Democrats. I mean, it's just amazing in ways great and small. It's differential treatment of stories. It's ignoring stories. It's differential treatment of scandals depending if it's Republican or Democrat. It's short-term memory. I mean, you know, a couple of things that strike me right away is, one is the differential treatment of the fact that President Trump is pursuing all of his available legal challenges everywhere where fraud was detected. You know, and this is questioning the legitimacy of the election. That's the mantra now. And believe me, a mantra gets out among the left-wing media, and it is everywhere. I know what people are forgetting is that as late as 2019, Hillary Clinton was saying that the 2016 election of Donald Trump was illegitimate because of voter suppression and dirty tricks and whatever. As late as 2019, Jimmy Carter was saying that the Russians put him in office. Okay? If we're talking about the transition from the Obama administration, Obama's idea of a peaceful transition of power was to get law enforcement interested in investigating the Trump campaign, you know, which is not exactly a peaceful, decent transition of power. And, of course, Al Gore fought until mid-December, fighting every possible legal battle. So that is just short-term memory. You could pick an example from any Washington Post headline.
What do you think are the chances of this going to the Supreme Court?
Well, in Pennsylvania, it's already there. I think that there may be good chances. It matters if the case is mooted by events. Anything could happen, including President Trump could concede, in which case a lot of these cases would become moot. Short of that, there are issues, and I try to focus on these. No one's interested in these, but there are issues that will survive this election cycle regardless of who wins. The prevalence of absentee ballots, the way they can't be tracked, the fact that they are often submitted so as to be received by the government as a ballot after Election Day. These are perennial issues. The costs of these things, the numbers that are of absentee ballots that are thrown out for lack of signature or failed signature match, or whether you should have a signature match at all. The doing away with the need for a special excuse. The doing away with the need for a witness. These are weaknesses in the system that have been exposed in this election.
Well,
everyone,
I think it's worse than weakness, if I may. I think it's absolute jerry-rigging of a system in the Democrats' jurisdictions so that they can control and prevail. So if there were indeed integrity in the election, most of this would go away. So I think that what's so troubling to me and to so many, and I've talked to, I talked to thousands of people at this point. What's so troubling is that there seems to be no accountability for the illegal activity, for flipping the votes in real time from Trump to Biden with this software. That's an outrageous illegal act. That's not an oops. It's not a glitch. It's not a glitch. I'm done.
Okay.
I'm ranting. It's just not a glitch.
No, it's the kind of thing that makes you rant. The extent to which these things are established varies, and the extent to which they all add up to a stolen election is not clear. I mean, the current margin is 5.9 million votes for Biden. To flip 10,000 votes is a Herculean effort. To flip 2.5 million. I understand that that's not how elections are decided. It's not a popular vote contest. There's the Electoral College. But that being said, I think that probably flipping the election is outside the reach of all the people who really do want to cheat or commit fraud, or, just this sort of self-righteous attitude that because, we progressives, as they describe themselves, are in the right. Rules don't apply to us. Anything we do, is legitimate to achieve our goal because our goal is holy, or whatever is the holy equivalent if you're a progressive. I understand all of that. I do think that it has shed a spotlight on a lot of areas that are systemically and legally flawed, where the problems are of the magnitude that they have to be fixed by state legislatures and federal legislature.
But, Bob, when they're hauling them in the back door at 4A in the dark of the night out of some funky sports car, okay, it just ain't right. Now, I'm going to say we had Lacey Johnson on with us. I've talked to Lacey Johnson. The guy would be great for that community. He would bring about jobs and opportunities and economic development. He's an amazing guy. Project Veritas has video out there, which I'm sure you're aware of, about the race against
Great
Ilhan.
organization.
Great organization. Great organization.
It's like, I like to think Judicial Watch is doing the work the Justice Department should be doing and isn't. Well, Project Veritas is doing the work that the media should be doing and isn't.
Precisely. Or the DOJ, frankly. I'm not real happy with the DOJ right now. I think a lot of people are just disgusted with the political corruption that is going on within that institution. And not everybody. I know some FBI agents, and they're good people. But when there's a systemic failure at the top of the leadership chain, your institution is flawed. But back to this Ilhan Omar race, they know they were paying $200 a vote. Absolutely verified.
We cannot allow these crooks, because that's what they are, to steal an election from the American people. They elected Donald Trump. They didn't elect Joe Biden. Joe Biden is in the lead because of the fraudulent ballots, the illegal ballots that were produced and that were allowed to be used after the election was over.
We're going to take a quick break. We have Bob Popper. You're listening to Success Happens on Free Talk 930 WFMD. We'll be right back. This Success Happens business service announcement is courtesy of Melissa Lentz, owner of MJAC Designs, an expert in customer service performance and analysis.
As you know, understanding your customers' expectations is important to enhancing their consumer experience, and they must know that they are number one. Their needs and wants must be fulfilled to reflect positively on your business. Do we all have a tough day? Yes, we do. Do we occasionally fall short as a business? Sometimes. We all know life happens, and our staff is mostly doing the best that they can. When you know your customers and based on their feedback, you focus on providing quality service, those small bumps in the road won't negatively impact your business reputation. Our 20-plus years of experience have taught us that two things are true. One, customer feedback allows you to alter your business delivery and ensure satisfied customers. Two, when you incorporate customer feedback, you can more effectively build your brand through traditional marketing vehicles. But don't be fooled into believing that marketing alone will bring back dissatisfied customers, because they don't know what the next experience will be or if it will be any different. MJAC will give you the tools to identify, reevaluate, and enhance your customers' experience. Putting people first and building solid relationships with your customers is the most effective way to succeed in today's competitive marketplace.
This business tip is courtesy of MJAC Designs, a certified minority, disadvantaged, and woman-owned business. MJAC, putting people first.
Past editions of this program are available in the audio vault at WFMD.com.
Welcome back to Success Happens. This is quite a show I have with me today. Bob Popper from Judicial Watch. So grateful for Judicial Watch and the important work that they're doing. I want to talk a little bit about this idea of the corruption, particularly in that Ilhan Omar race. That woman needs to go. When you look at that kind of flagrant violations, how do you proceed and call an election when that's in process?
Well, it's a very high standard to order a new election.
Well, the election has completed. People have voted, and she's been deemed the winner. And there's a ton of corruption there. So Lacey got robbed, in my view. Now, I don't know if her corrupt numbers would exceed, but why else would she do it? I mean, if she didn't have to cheat, why did she?
But did she cheat, or did people cheat for her? I mean, it matters.
I got that, and I guess she can keep her little sticky fingers clean, but there's no way, there is no way, in my experience in leadership, I'm 100% accountable for the people under me.
Yeah.
So you cannot walk away and go, oops, I didn't know about it. Then then you're just incompetent. So I don't believe she didn't know. I believe she was absolutely complicit, and I believe she's involved, and they need to slam her on that. They need to get the evidence. Now, I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. Meanwhile, the people have been robbed of a good leader who could operate on their behalf and, frankly, would honor the Constitution, which she doesn't at all.
Well, you know what's ironic is that there's a lot of discussion now, even among Democrats, that the reason that the House narrowed and the reason that the Senate was an overwhelmingly Democrat, there was some predictions were 54 Democrats, 55, 56, and that ain't going to happen. And the reason these things happen is because of Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Representative Tlaib, and, the people on the far left of the progressive scale, were so unpopular that there was a national movement the other way.
However, they all got reelected. Help me understand that. They are anti-American.
Well, it's the district you run it. I mean,
I know, but so let's go on to Electoral College.
The other one.
Talk to me about Electoral College. So here we are, we're in this mess. How on earth can we get to the point where the 12th Amendment kicks in and we have one state, one vote deciding the presidency?
In this race, you would need to get a situation where neither candidate managed to get a majority of electoral votes. And I don't see that happening. I don't think either candidate thinks that will happen. You know, President Trump may believe that he's going to get a majority of electoral votes. Biden believes that he already has it, but I don't think anyone believes that there will be a shortage of electoral votes because what would have to happen is that a state goes for someone other than the two main candidates in a way that neither one of them can get a majority. You know, I don't think that that's going to happen. It's a peculiarity of the House of Representatives that although it's majority Democrat by individual, the voting in that circumstance would be by state delegation. And Republicans actually control more state delegations. So I think that's why Republicans were hoping for that to happen, or were content that if that did happen, the outcome would be good. But I don't see that happening. You know, I would say that regardless of the fact that that's not going to happen, the Electoral College is a brilliant institution that requires candidates to visit what everyone, you know, on the left derides as flyover country. You know, and what the Electoral College does is it requires you to visit states around the country because you need to get local majorities. So it is a brilliant institution, particularly for a country as divided as we are.
Let me ask you this. I wanted to see where we stand. Let's just do an update on Pennsylvania as you see it, Wisconsin, Georgia. Let's start with those. And I want to say this about recounts. To me, like I said, it's just regurgitating the same garbage you already counted. In the cases where they stopped counting, they bring in more votes because they haven't quite gotten to the number they want yet. At what point is it really just a do-over?
You know, the recounts rarely change things except by a couple of hundred votes, and typically no one knows why this is. I'm sure you have a theory, typically in favor of the Democrats. But regardless, it rarely changes things. In Pennsylvania, I mean, you know, the initial lawsuits were over different issues than they're focusing on now. The initial lawsuit was over the fact that there were ballots outstanding that hadn't been received by Election Day. Well, it turns out that there's only 10,000 or so of those ballots. And the margin in Pennsylvania is growing in favor of Biden, or has grown. It's now about 70,000 votes. So that's not going to make a difference. Now, there are other issues involved, but it's very hard to say, for example, the fact that you were not properly allowed to witness the counting of ballots means that those ballots should be thrown out. I mean, I don't see that. I don't see any judge deciding that. You need more in order to do that. You know, Georgia, I expect, you know, everyone seems to be angrily spitting at each other over in Georgia, you know, Secretary of State and Republicans and candidates. That being said, it looks like the outcome's going to be the same once the ballots are counted. And, you know, and a very important finding is going to be that Senator Perdue is not going to hit 50%, wherein he wouldn't have to have a runoff. He's still about 12,000 to 14,000 votes away from that. You know, and that would decide the Senate if that were true, but that's apparently not going to happen.
I have to say this. I am so shocked because I've been to these rallies. I went to Pennsylvania. I think that the nonsense that went on in Philadelphia was ridiculous. I've talked to people in the black community. I have interviewed people. In fact, we'll play some of those at some point from the march. You know, there are people who represent the black community that are shocked because they know within the black community that there's been a much greater number of people who've seen the benefits of the Trump administration for the black community. So at one point there was a projection that it would be as 50%. But when you're swinging votes and you're stealing votes or you're making up votes or you're conjuring up, and I don't call it an irregularity, I think it's a flat out illegal activity. You know, when you're doing that stuff, it really skews the numbers. So who knows the truth? But at some point when things are this messed up, I really believe that we should be doing a revote because now the truth is out there. Let's see what would really happen if we ran the election the way it's supposed to be run. And
one of the other sort of favors that everyone's not focusing on now because we're counting, but one of the favors that the media does for Democratic candidates is call the polls in a skewed way that depresses, the possible turnout for Republican candidates, which is, Wisconsin, I think the polls were showing Biden with a 17, 15-point lead, and it comes down to just a few percent. I mean, the polls were spectacularly wrong, and this isn't just a matter of miscalculation.
No, it's manipulation of the
turnout.
It's manipulation of the people. It's a propaganda push, and it's disgusting.
Yeah.
I don't know how to end on a high note on this one. We're
there was a book out and with a wonderful title a few years ago, and I think it's John Derbyshire, and the title was "We Are Doomed." Now, I guess you can't. That was a joke.
No way to spit shine that. I want to mention also, again, for people that are listening, please support Judicial Watch, judicialwatch.org, and donate to the organization. They need our support to keep up the good fight for truth and justice and preserving our nation. And also, Tom Fitton has written a new book. All of that is available at judicialwatch.org. And I just really thank you, Bob, for being available today. Thank you to the organization. We look forward to continuing our partnership to bring truth and light to what's going on here in America, because I am fighting for our democracy, and I know many patriots out there are. We are very worried that this is going the way of Hugo Chavez and Venezuela and a socialist nation when abuses of power are occurring like they are. And so we have to stop it. It has to stop.
Thank you for fighting.
You're welcome. And thank you for being in the trenches with us. And really, God bless you guys for all the great work you do. Thank you so much. We'll look forward to speaking with you again in the future. Perhaps after all this mess is over with, we can do a debrief.
That would be great.
Our country